Borderless is about building trust across borders, unlocking capital, and making collective investments easy, transparent, and community-driven. Now, here's what you can expect over the next 90 minutes or so. We'll have opening remarks from that sets the tone, sharing about the Borderless mission and vision from our founder and CEO, Joe Kinvi. We'll have a thought-provoking panel session exploring the topic, is Africa ready for diaspora investments? We'll be featuring a powerhouse line of speakers. We also have, we'll spend the time just, again, sharing some platform updates to give you what's launching and what's ahead, followed closely by a demo. And then we'll have a Q&A session with our founder, Joe Kinvi. And finally, a collective spotlight on some of the exciting co-investment groups already forming on the platform. So that's the agenda for tonight. Please do stay muted if you're not speaking. You can use the chat to, again, contribute and get involved. We have the Q&A feature. If you're on your mobile phone, there are 3 dots you can click on, and you see the Q&A tool. If you're on a laptop, we have 3 dots that you can also, again, click into to ask your questions. Ask your questions. If you see a question there that you really like, please use the upvote feature. So when it comes to the Q&A time, we will be able to go into those. So with no further ado, at the heart of Borderless is a fearless leader who I was teasing earlier on that, I mean, imagine you getting a TechCrunch feature the day of your launch. I don't think there's any better omen than that. Pass it on to Joe Kinvi to give us his opening remarks. Over to you, Joe.
Thank you, Nubi. I was going to call this the Nubi and Joe show, but we're going to do that on this call. Well, thank you all for making the time this evening. Thank you for being here, not just for today, but in every conversation, every investment, and every moment of belief that brought us to this point. Today, we're launching Borderless. And it's a mission that began with a very simple question, which is, what if the future of Africa wasn't locked in a vault, sitting in a government office, or in the hands of another global charity, but already in our hands? For decades, the continent of Africa has faced an acute funding deficit of slightly over $400 billion, that is. Yet the African diaspora has been sending money home every year. I think in 2023 it was 100 billion. In fact, the diaspora remains the biggest funder of Africa. The truth is, most of this capital is spent on consumption, so food, school fees, medical bills, and emergencies. I'm sure you've heard people talk about, let's convert consumption remittance into investment. And the truth is that never works in practice. But what we know, and through research and talking to a lot of people, is that the African diaspora holds over 30 billion in idle capital, $30 billion. And this is according to the UN. We actually believe the number is much, much bigger. Our goal at Borderless is to really help you put that capital to work. With the right opportunities, trusted structures like Borderless and accessible tools, the diaspora can channel a portion of that capital into meaningful investments across the continent. At Borderless, we believe that the infrastructure to unlock the next wave of what we're calling investment remittance is what we're building. One of the biggest barriers for many of us and for the entire diaspora is trust. And we believe that we found a way to begin rebuilding that trust. So instead of us, the folks at Borderless, bringing you investment opportunities, we're partnering with collectives, investment collectives, and that's a group of people that already co-invest. And we want to bring them onto Borderless. And this way, you can invest alongside people you know and already trust. Why this approach? Well, trust is everything, right? You invest with familiar faces, friends, family, founders, and it's one of the most powerful ways to overcome fear and uncertainty in this space. I'm sure you've heard things like, oh, don't invest back home. It's too risky. It's too opaque. It's too complicated. We've heard a lot of these stories, and many of us haven't lived them. And that's why we're really, really building this technology. We want to build something different. And what I'm calling is Borderless is a sort of a bridge. And if you've seen my deck, I have something like a broker of trust. It's a bridge between what we are calling intent and action. A bridge for the diaspora to bring the capital and connect that with African opportunities. And it's a bridge between people who care about building the future of Africa. And just like any bridge, it takes time to build. It's taken us 2 years to get to this point. No, sorry. It's taken 2 years to get to this point, and I like to believe that we're getting started. We're just getting started. At the heart of Borderless are communities, and it's a collective of people that often say, we may not have it all figured out, but we trust each other enough to take the first step together. And I would like to say to everyone here that Borderless will be with you along the way. We want to make investment in Africa simple, transparent, and communal. We're here for the first-time investor who want to do more than just sending money home. We're here for the collective leader who wants to build something that's bigger than them. And we're here for everyone who believes that the next big opportunity doesn't have to come from Silicon Valley, but it can actually come from Lagos, Nairobi, Cairo, Kigali. One thing that I've come to accept as a founder is the road ahead. Well, getting here hasn't been easy, and the road ahead isn't going to be easier. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to solve it all by ourselves, because we can't. And we're not doing this alone. We're doing it with you, many of you who are either here or watching this video. You are our early believers, you're the community, and you are our co-investors in this mission. The product, which we'll get a demo of shortly, it's not perfect, and it's very, very far from it, and that's okay. With your feedback, we will make it better. So please, when you're using Borderless, don't hold back. Tell us what you want to see. Tell us how to really, really make it work. Tell us what's missing, and please help us shape Borderless. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Joe. I think this is the most serious I've seen in a long time. But to lighten things up, I think it was someone who says if you're not embarrassed about the first version of your product, then you've shipped too late. So I think, yeah, it's what it is. Looking forward to people who actually try it out and give you feedback on that. At its heart, Borderless exists to transform Africa into a thriving, self-sustaining economy by giving the diaspora community the infrastructure, transparency, and tools to co-invest in back home. It's about trust over distance. I mean, just about like the bridge there into intent and action, wealth through community, and impact at scale. This isn't just about tech products, it's a movement, and today we're all part of it. So again, thank you everyone for joining us. I think we have already crossed the 100 persons on the call, about 108 people on the call this evening to come bear with us to the launch of Borderless. So thank you for tuning in wherever you are. All right, so let's dive into the big question of the evening. Is Africa fully ready for diaspora investments? We'll explore what needs to exist for cross-border capital to move freely, the role of community and trust in co-investing, and why now the tipping points. Joining us are four exceptional voices who have expertise and real expertise across tech, finance, and ecosystem. We have Ezra Olubi, co-founder and CTO at Paystack. We have Rumbi, the ecosystem lead at NewSpace Finance, and we have Achebe, founder of Achebe Capital. And back on stage, we have Joe Kinvi, the founder and CEO of Borderless. Passing it back to you, Joe. Looking forward to the great conversation.
Thank you. So I don't think you'll probably ever see these three people on the panel again. And that's because I've used my golden card with each one of them. They don't do panels, they don't do talks. And yeah, I'm glad that I've managed to get the three of them. But somehow they happen to be available. So maybe instead of me going into like a deep intro, Ezra, I can start with you if you can quickly introduce yourself, maybe 30 seconds. and then I'll give it to you, Chi, and then I'll give it to you, Rumbi, and we can go into the questions.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And thanks, Joe, for having me here. I'm not sure I'm going to take up to 30 seconds to say my name and what I do. But yes, my name is Ezra Olubi, co-founder and CTO at Paystack. And glad to be here and answer any questions through my way. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give it to you, Chi.
Thank you, Joe, and congratulations on the
you.
launch. Hello, everyone. My name is Chi Achebe, and I am a Nigerian American. I was born in Nigeria. My family immigrated to the US when I was younger, and I grew up in New Jersey. And I'm a former founder turned VC. So I started a healthcare startup in a former life. I started a healthcare startup in Joburg, as well as what became the largest accelerator program for African entrepreneurs in Johannesburg with MasterCard Foundation, African Leadership Academy. And through my experiences raising capital across, or attempting to, across Africa and the US, that's actually what inspired me to become a VC. And so I started out my VC journey by just betting on myself and just investing part of my savings in founders that I believed in. And so my first check was in Flutterwave. That backstory is a whole other, that's another panel, another discussion for another day. It was an amazing sort of serendipitous moment in time. But yeah, my first angel check was in Flutterwave, continued to angel invest and build out an outperforming angel portfolio, and which led me to then start Achebe Capital. And the goal for Achebe Capital is to essentially bridge the entire African diaspora. I'm very passionate about us investing as a global African diaspora collective. So that includes Africans on the continent, African Americans in the US, Caribbean Americans, and ultimately globally, because as Africans, we build everywhere. And when we build, we do our thing, right? And so I want Achebe Capital to be the first point of call for any founder that's building globally. I get decks from Dubai, I get decks in China. I want them to know that Achebe Capital exists, and we're going to take a proper look at your company, and we have a vested interest in your success.
Thank you, Chi. I've got a couple of questions around your first investment, but I'll pause it over to Rumbi to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am Rumbi Makanga, Zimbabwean born, grew up in the UK. I've spent a lot of my career in the deep tech space. I started my career as an operator in deep tech startups and have also worked, I think my VC experience actually is entirely in deep tech funds, one generalist deep tech fund, and most recently a space tech fund, a global space tech fund based in London. I started investing in African startups back in, I think, 2020, around then. Huge passion for supporting the ecosystem in multiple ways. I've done that in different forms and formats over time. Part of that has been helping African founders connect with global investors, African and global investors. Part of that has been investing as an angel. I've also trained African angels and invested a collective of angels. Really feel like there's so much yet to be done in terms of actually mobilizing large-scale diaspora investment into the continent, which I think is why I'm not sure why I'm on the panel, but I think that's maybe why Joseph invited me onto the panel. So yeah, interested to have the conversation.
Thank you, Rumbi. Chi, I'm going to start with you because you mentioned your first investment. Having invested in Africa over the past couple of years, what trends are you seeing as an investor, specifically from a liquidity perspective? It's the topic that's top of mind for so many people. When it comes to Africa, is there liquidity there? And can you maybe share more from your African investment perspective?
Sure. Well, so the trends that I'm seeing across my investments, especially those that are based on the continent, is that the talent is incredible, right? So the companies, a lot of the companies that I see, and I'm sure there's a lot of talk about how, African companies tend to be operating at a discount. The valuation is often not always aligned with the actual fundamentals of the business. There's a bit of a haircut when it comes to valuation, which shouldn't be. And so I think that there are, it's clear, it's evident, right, that there are founders that are building world-class companies. There's world-class talent. And to answer the second part of your question around liquidity, I think possible. I think there is a liquidity issue globally, right, across the entire venture ecosystem. So this isn't something that's necessarily specific to Africa, right? Even in Europe, right? There are talks of the EU, creating a unified stock exchange because there's a lack of liquidity in general, or there's liquidity challenges in general. But I would say that, most of the liquidity events that happen, not just on the continent, but globally, tends to be acquisitions. And so, or mergers, but acquisitions typically. And from that viewpoint, liquidity is very possible if you build a company. I mean, we have Ezra on this panel, so you can speak more to that, right, Ezra? And I'd love to kind of hear it from you on this question as well. I think liquidity is certainly possible, and it's one of those things that's sort of like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think that a lot of times it can actually also be manufactured, right? We saw that with SPACs in 2020, 2021, 2022. We just got to get creative and collaborative and innovative about how to exit. But if you build a high quality company, that's a real company that's generating revenue, and that has the fundamentals, has sound fundamentals, it's certainly very possible. I will say also one more thing about liquidity. The future that we're trying to build at Achebe Capital is one where, because I think right now, most companies, irrespective of where they're building, in Europe, across the African continent, a lot of times founders build to be acquired, right? Typically by a US company, right? And that's an incredible feat. Again, shout out to Ezra and Paystack. I think it's very difficult to do. And I think that in the short term, in the near term, while that might be okay, I think we need more sustainable long-term solutions, right? And so I see a world in which I don't think the rest of the world should be building to be acquired by the US, right? I don't think that's sustainable. And I don't even think that's necessary, right? I see a world in which if we invest, or if we really kind of invest as a collective, there's a world in which African companies can acquire companies from other countries. I don't see why not. We certainly have the talent, we certainly have the resources, we certainly have the potential and the capabilities. And what excites me is think about a world in which, let's say Black founders, right? A Black founder building in the US, a Black founder building in on the continent. There's a scenario in which an African-based company can acquire a Black-owned company in the US, and vice versa. A Black-owned company in the US can acquire an a Black-owned company in Africa. Like, that's the future I would love to see exist. And it does exist, actually. It does exist to a certain extent, and I think more of those narratives need to be shared, but I want to see more of it. And so that's what we're building towards. And thank you for all the applauses and the hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Shia.
Appreciate it.
And yes, I think I like the thought of like the local, I want to call local M&As, but we're also seeing a lot of African companies buying or acquiring foreign companies, like the Lemfi case this week. They bought an Irish company last year as well. So, and I think, one company bought like a car distribution company in the US earlier. Yes. So I am going to stay away from the liquidity question because we need to come back to it, obviously. But I'm going to come to you, Rumbi. You've trained investors. You and I have co-invested in a couple of deals, and we've had extensive conversation around what investing in Africa should be like. And I think somehow we're kind of like agreeing that it's not necessarily venture, although venture has its space. Like, what practical advice would you give to an African in the diaspora who want to start investing in Africa? Maybe you can share experience about how you started, especially when people don't know where to begin.
Yeah, I think this question is really hard for me, just because I think the starting point matters, and my starting point was that I was already embedded in the tech ecosystem. Like, my whole career has been spent within the tech ecosystem, right? And so I think I think really the way I see this question actually is there's one part which is like, what do people need to do? I think there are some practical things you can do. I think number one, definitely join collectives, join syndicates, get that hands-on experience, right, with people who have walked that journey, who can, kind of help you understand what this is all about. I think even saying that though, I think this is a conversation you and I had a couple of years ago, right? Like I spoke to a lot of syndicates across the African continent, and they were saying that even where they had people who are like business angels, right? So people who are like professionals, who've built businesses, who understand how to run a business, still actually had a gap, like an education gap when it came to actually understanding how to angel invest. So I think there's the other side where it's like, I think those of us who are building, these syndicates and these platforms for people to invest also need to do a little bit to like bridge that education gap. Because I think it's not obvious knowledge. It's not like something that you just would stumble into, especially if you're coming from a really like non-tech ecosystem background. So I think there's that one piece. But I do think there's some really, really valuable information out there nowadays around, just some of the things you need to be thinking about, things that you should be considering about, how to just look at markets, how to look at deals, getting into the mindset of an angel investor, understanding that you're taking a significant risk, first of all, understanding that you're investing in long timelines, right? Like you should be able to have that money locked up for like 5 to 7 years. That's if we're talking specifically about venture. And I think that comes to the one thing that you mentioned in that conversation, right? Which is when it comes to diaspora investments into the African continent, is a lot of that going to be, or do a lot of people want that to even be in venture? I think that's something that actually, I think that's a really important topic, right? There have been all these conversations recently around the fact that we actually don't have enough great products for diasporans to invest in and like financial products, right? So we have venture, which is a particular asset class, which I think for those of us that love venture is a great asset class to invest into, even though obviously you have very high risk of losing all of your investments, right? But I think if you're really driven to find those great deals and invest in those great deals, it's a fantastic investment. But then there's this other universe, right, of investments that I think we also need to make sure that people can tap into, like real estate. I love the example that you used in I think it was in the TechCrunch article, somebody that who spent 200K, I think 200,000 euros to build a house back home, and the house was never built. And I think all of us know those examples, especially from like our parents' generation, right? Who have been funneling money into communities, into family members, but without perhaps getting that return on the other side. And we all know, especially for our parents' generation, they're thinking about, how do we secure our retirement? How do we secure our livelihoods if we go back home, right? Because a lot of them do want that. And I think a lot of people do want to have these investment opportunities and business opportunities. So I think it's also about, I see that there's a responsibility for those of us who are well placed to actually build the capacity and capability for more sort of transparent ways of investing into the continent that enable people to have, I think, maybe a better spread in terms of risk profiles of investments, so things where actually they can have more security, because most people aren't wanting to make super high risk bets, but to have more security, have more transparency in those investments, have more trust, have more security. And I feel like I'm doing the Borderless pitch for you in advance, but that actually is a fundamental thing that we require, because I think when we're looking at 100 billion being deployed into the continent from the diaspora, and the Zimbabwean community actually, I think, is like top 5 in terms of how much we send back home, which is crazy actually, given that we're such a small population, right? And that funding, we're really propping up a lot of these economies as the diaspora. Generally, as a country, we're a very significant force. And so I think it's really like figuring out how to harness that. And I think there's a lot of work still to be done in terms of figuring out the right kinds of products, like investment products that make sense. I think there's some really interesting innovation that can be done as well in terms of, creating things that work. And one thing that I think about a lot actually is like when we look at the transition, sorry, Joe, final point, but when we look at the transition from our parents' generation to our generation, I just don't believe that our generation is going to be doing the things that our parents have been doing, right? Like, these amounts of money that are continuously sent back home to, these relatives, I think it's just going to shift. And I think within that, we also need to think about how we manage that shift, right? In terms of moving, I guess, with that kind of like generational shift.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of opinions, and it kind of sucks that I'm the one asking the questions. I can't actually give my opinion. Ezra, I'm going to go straight into, so since we're talking about diaspora investments, like for somebody who's essentially made his money in Africa, what role did diaspora investors play, if any, as part of your Paystack journey?
Yeah. So I would say that came in perhaps in like the very early stages of the business. when we went to YC and then started raising our early rounds. A couple of, and I think Ruby mentioned something to that point as well, but a couple of Nigerians working in Silicon Valley came together, formed syndicates and all that, and invested in Paystack in the early days. So we had at least 2 funds that were of such nature. And of course, there was also like another proper VC fund that was started by a diaspora Nigerian who was moving back to the country as well. So yeah, I would say, yeah, I don't know if that answers the question, but yes, we had a few Nigerians in diaspora who invested in the company, yeah, at seed stage. Yeah.
Okay, well, this is information I did not know. I have to go find these people and get them to come onto Borderless. Ezra, I'm going to stick to you. You're investing. Also, trivia for people on this call. 2 out of the 3 speakers are investors in Borderless. You can use the comments to let us know who do you think they are. But for maybe, I don't think many people know that Ezra, you as a founder, you also invests. And I've got a question. My question is, what are you investing in post-exit? And do you have any fun facts about your portfolio? And Ezra really he kind of gave me that question to ask him. And if you follow him on Twitter, I think he had a couple of things to say this morning. But I'd love to, Ezra, if you can maybe share a bit about the things that you're investing in post-exit, beyond some companies that we may know on this call.
All right. Okay, where do I start from? I think I can give a quick overview. First check I wrote post-exit was literally in January of 2021. I essentially just told the founder ahead of time that I wanted to put in money, and as soon as I was liquid enough to do that, I did. Since then, I've done a total of 49 deals, and this is spread across funds, startups, the creative industry, so film, TV, and all. And then I also have some in the hospitality / journalism sector, but that's like a very small bucket. I would say, who can guess like the total capital I've deployed? This will be the first time I'll be saying this publicly, but yeah, I'm curious to see if anyone can come close.
Okay, we have 2M, 1M, 1M, 1.5.
All right, I'll just take it. So $3.6 million. And this is across the 49 deals. Funds take the highest, so that's 51% of my portfolio is in funds. 24, about 24 is in startups, and then another 24 is in film, and then like a very small percentage, like 2, is in the others. Yeah, so that's it.
Okay, that's super useful. Any maybe like last question?
Yeah.
Any horror stories?
Well, I shared one this morning. But yes, I don't know. That would be difficult to say without like naming names, and I guess maybe seeming to like put people under the bus in some way in public. But I would say so far, the one I shared publicly earlier today, not to at the risk of mentioning their name, I would say that's the biggest so far. I have about 2 other companies that have closed, that have shut down as well, for various reasons. One was able to return capital, or at least a bit of it, while the other was just like, apologies, we are just shutting down and moving on. Interestingly enough, the one that didn't return capital was was a US company. So no, how would I put it? Not a shade to Nigerian founders in any way. But yes, and while the one that was able to return was actually a Nigerian company. And yeah, I don't know, what other horror stories can I think of? Nothing much. Most of the investment are like flat. It's just doing marginally well. While I have a few outliers that are doing really great. So I guess everything like balances out and keeps me in the green at the end of the day. So yeah.
Thank you, Ezra. I think you and I need more side conversations beyond this. Chi, please let me get back to you. A quick one. What does diaspora investment mean to you? In your intro, you talked about like some of the angel investments that you've done that are doing really well. Maybe like in the light of Ezra, if you can you share a bit more light around like the ones that are doing well, the ones that are not doing so well, and how do you essentially monitor these companies, because you're still in the US? Like, how do you monitor them from afar as an angel? Do you want to shed a bit more light on that?
Sure. Yeah. So roughly half of my investments, or a little bit more than half of my investments, actually, no, I think it's 50-50. Half of my investments are based on the continent. The other half are based in the US. And thankfully, there hasn't been any write-offs. All of my companies have had a meaningful fair market value, an increase or markups, markups in fair market value, which means they're growing, essentially. And I would say in terms of reporting, I mean, in general, right, across the industry, reporting can be difficult in terms of from founders, depending on the company, because founders are busy building a company. And especially if they're early days, they may not have the mechanisms to do regular reporting. But thankfully, all of my portcos, they regularly report, and there really isn't any meaningful difference in reporting or consistency that I'm seeing across the US investments and the investments on the continent. I think it's a norm in the industry that most companies will report at least annually and ideally quarterly, and they do send quarterly updates for the most part. So again, I think, in fact, that's one thing I wish more investors knew, or more investors across the diaspora and just globally, is that I think investing in an investment on the continent, at least within venture capital, so I'll be specific to asset class, right? There aren't any meaningful differences that I'm seeing, at least in the companies that I've invested in. And so that's very, it's very promising, you know. I think it's great to see. Did I answer it fully? Did I fully answer your question?
Yeah, specifically you want to talk about?
I think you're kind of like nudging me towards Flutterwave, Joe. I see what you're trying to do here. No, I recall, it's not every day that your first investment becomes a unicorn company, right? And I will always have gratitude for GB, and the story in which and how it came about is actually I've known the company for a long time, since back when I was in Joburg, right? When I was based in Joburg, and I, again, helped build and found an accelerator program for African entrepreneurs. And also I always have gratitude for E as well. So back then, E was one of the mentors for our founders at the NZ Prize. And I'd always kind of just been an evangelist amongst my circles for Flutterwave. But at that time, I didn't know that I could invest. I didn't know what VC was, right? And then fast forward, post-business school, I started my career at a bank, and I became one of the first associates to help source and lead a deal. That deal was Flutterwave, helped get it to the finish line. For whatever reason, you know, the team decided to pull out of the deal. And I'd run the models. I'd seen that it's a rocket ship, you know, and so, you know, I let GB know, like, hey, the team decided to go in a different direction, but I'd love to invest. If there's an opportunity, I'd love to invest. And he was like, I'd love to have you. And he created room for me in that round, right? And I think that's what it's all about. It's all of us collaborating and creating room and space for each other, right? And that was my first angel check. I brought in my mom, I brought in my sister, created an SPV. Fast forward less than a year later, they became a unicorn company. Now they're valued over $3 billion, right? And our angel investment has more than like 10x at this point. And so I think those stories aren't always common, or they're not, actually, maybe they're more common, maybe they're not always shared. But I definitely think there's space for more of those stories. And it also just starts with us, wherever we sit, right? I think we all can play a role using our sphere of influence to create space, and then also having the conviction to bet not only on ourselves, but on each other, right? Within reason, right? The business was sound, right? So I felt fairly confident about this, the investment, but I think there's definitely space. And I want to just underscore something that Rumbi mentioned, because I'm actually actively looking to diversify my portfolio. I completely agree with you, Rumbi. I think I love the fact that platforms like, well, I think Borderless is the only platform I know of right now that kind of does this, that offers this. And Joe, you can send me the check later. That offers other asset classes. And I love that. I think it's really important for us to diversify our investments and create space, platforms that enable that. Because at the end of the day, yes, there's a place for tech-enabled investments. But at the end of the day, SMBs are the backbone of every economy. Right? That's what drives GDPs in the US, across the continent. And I truly believe there's so much potential in terms of investing in SMBs and then creating a way for people to do it remotely. So they don't need to feel like they have to be on the ground, boots on the ground, right? If you build that trust layer and have a team that's able to monitor your investments and give people that insurance, sky's the limit. So love to see it and want to see more of it.
Thank you, Chi. I'm going to cue very nicely to the next question, talking about asset classes. Rumbi, when we look forward maybe 12, 24 months from now, where do you think the diaspora should be investing their capital? And somehow it's sounding like it might not necessarily be venture, but at least from you and she's talking about diversification. Like, any recommendation for folks who are thinking? Because a lot of people are thinking a lot of things. But yeah, like, where do you think we should be, the diaspora should be funneling their capital when it comes to investing in Africa?
I think that's a super dangerous question to ask me in the way you've worded it. So I'm going to reword your question. What are some of the potential asset classes that I think we could all be looking at? I think real estate is one that people are already investing in, have been investing in, with various degrees of success in the past because of so many different things. I've looked at a lot of startups over the years that have looked to sort of fix that problem, right? In terms of retail investing into real estate, or just enabling people to invest in real estate back home in a way that makes sense. Personally, I'm really excited about how we can start to harness like the significant diaspora capital for putting money into SMEs, doing some more debt financing. I think there are some really interesting platforms that have been doing this in different ways, right? Like, there are platforms that have existed for funding capital into SMEs, funding capital into agriculture as well, which I think is another really interesting one. And I think, given what I perceive as actually the sort of makeup of a lot of our economies and our, I think we all have it. Like, my grandma was a farmer, right? Like, it's something that there's a real familiarity around. There's also like a really strong, at least for us as Zimbabweans, there's a really strong like sort of attachment to that, right? Like to the ag tech space, but not a lot of innovation happening. We're still having a lot of, smallholder farmers, really small plots, really small operations. So I think ways that we can actually, my interest personally is actually, how do we take all of this capital, this 100 billion that's deployed to the continent every year, and how do we take slices of that and use that as leverage to create transformation on the continent in ways that are actually going to be scalable and sustainable into the future. And so I think there's loads of opportunities in so many different sectors. I think healthcare is another one that could be really interesting. I'm really curious about like what retail investment in the industries like mining could be, because actually, if we're looking at where value is being derived in the continent, right, that's a huge one, especially, like I say, as a Zimbabwean, that's a huge industry, but it's also very like closed off. I was in Zimbabwe over sort of October to January, and I randomly got introduced to some miners. I went on like tours of different mines in the country, but it's a very, there's a lot of stuff around it, right? It's a very, very, especially in Zim, it's a very small world. It's a very closed off world. But I'm really, really excited to see what can be done in terms of actually creating financing instruments that enable access to some of these really high value opportunities. But I think also putting money into sectors where there's actually a lot of safety and security of investments, which I think is really really important part. I don't know that I've seen a lot being done in like bonds and that kind of thing, but I think there's so many different things to be figured out. And I also think it's important to kind of like, there's a difference between like, if you're an institution or a family office or a high net worth deploying capital versus if you're just an ordinary person, right? I think when we talk about the diaspora, ultimately we're going to be talking about a lot of retail investment. I think the great thing is there's been a lot of movement, a lot of positive movement in terms of legal frameworks being established. But I do think that the other side of this conversation is also that I think we're going to have to use our combined might to perhaps push for some of that to shift, right? To have better frameworks for investing that enable more of these kinds of products to be built on the continent.
Thank you. I'm going to ask, I think we might be at time, but I have one more question. And that's for you, Ezra, because it doesn't seem like you've spoken in a bit. I like to believe that you really understand Africa fintech infrastructure, and you've built products across the continent. Like, what gaps do you think still exist in enabling investment flows from the diaspora into African markets?
A lot. But yeah, I mean, let me start even this thing. There's data. We don't necessarily have like a lot of transparent data into like private companies and just metrics across board and all that. And as a matter of fact, some of my early investments were actually more or less for me to have a seat at the table of where things are happening. So I gain the insights that I can actually gain, and less of like, oh, if I lose money, then I'll be sad. More like I would actually learn something from it. There's also, I think there's a problem of when it comes to repatriating your funds as well, right? Like say there's most companies, like basically there's hard currency shortages on the continent. So which means if there's an exit, you probably like have to wait for a bit before you can get your returns in USD and all that. It's still also very expensive when it comes to just money movement. The cost of money landing in Nigeria or in Africa before it eventually like gets to the thing that it should do. There's that. Also, when it comes to governance, I think that is something that a lot of African businesses currently struggle with as well. And I guess I wonder how that would be fixed at the local level. But obviously, it can be edged with initiatives like Borderless or other syndicates and all that. And then also just the perception of political risks. Like, I'm putting money in this country right now. Are the policies going to align and help me make the returns that I imagine I would make from this country, or would my money just go down the drain for no reason, like not even the founder's fault or anything, just the government does something funny. So I think there are essentially just a number of things that people have to contend with. So
I guess we have a lot of work to do at
yes.
I'm going to finish it up with you, which is it's teeing up what Ezra talked about, which is political risk or perceived political risk. As somebody who is investing in Africa, is that something that you spend a lot of time paying attention to before writing a check? I mean, there is risk everywhere, and I think we can even call political risk a market risk, which you can't really mitigate. Like, is that something that you pay attention to when you're writing a check, or having spent time on the continent, you really, really understand how to mitigate or navigate it?
This is me, right? Oh, okay. All right, sorry. Okay.
For me, okay. No worries. So yes, but not necessarily. This isn't, again, it's not specific to my investments on the continent. I think before making any investment decision, me and my team, we do a proper risk analysis, and that includes a number of factors. There's, as you mentioned, market risk in any investment. I do think when it comes to investments on the continent, especially with an investment committee, like things that come up in investment committee meetings, of course, it's FX risk and devaluation. I think that tends to be, and devaluation, political risk, regulatory risks. But devaluation is something that's always a concern, right? Because irrespective, let's say, even if a company does well, if the currency devalues, that also kind of devalues your potential return. And so I think that is a real risk, more so than political risk. But I do think there are ways to hedge it. There are ways that it is being hedged. As we know, in the near to midterm, stable coins provide some hedging against that, right? They're able to hedge against devaluation, facilitate cross-border payments, and just give access to global markets. But at the end of the day, stable coins, while great, and it's growing. I think JP Morgan recently reported that right now the global stable coin market is valued at 2.5 billion, and that's going to increase to 500 billion in the next decade, right? And a lot of that is being driven by the global South, especially the continent, right? And so while I think it's a great sort of avenue and a mitigation for, again, near term, midterm, I don't think it's sustainable in the long term, because at the end of the day, it's still pegged to the dollar, right? And I think that ultimately, if we want to level the playing field, we need to make sure that our local currencies and local currencies more broadly can compete on equal footing globally. But that is an area that I think that helps with that mitigation.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Again, last question, and to you, Rumbi, is Africa ready for diaspora investments? Which is essentially the title of this panel.
What do you mean? Do you mean is the diaspora ready to invest? Do you mean
Yes,
is the
the
African
diaspora
continent ready to receive investment?
I mean, you can take the question however you want.
I would like to think that the diaspora is ready to invest, and I think having looked at having been having, that's a really weird way to say that, I know, but like having been involved in conversations about this for such a long time, I think loads of people want to invest. A case in point actually is a couple of years ago I was speaking with my mother, and she doesn't understand about technology. Like, she doesn't get VC, right? But she understands that it's a really interesting and really exciting opportunity to invest. And I remember what she said to me was like, I can just give you like the 5K. And you just, like kind of like what she did, right? Like, she brought her family in. And I think that people just need those access points, because if you don't know somebody who has access to these deals, if you don't know how to actually go about this, how to evaluate deals, it remains very like closed off. I think a lot of people fundamentally, I mean, everybody interacts with tech every single day, but like that's the VC world is like it has different language. It has, you know what I mean? Like it's actually a bit like obscure in so many ways. And so I think maybe there's steps that we need to make it more accessible, make it, I think, safer for people to invest. I think there definitely need to be guardrails, in my opinion, around like retail investing. I think it's dangerous to tell people, invest in tech and you're going to get a 10x, like there's nuance around it. But I genuinely believe the diaspora is ready to invest. They just need the right kinds of tools. The question on whether the African continent is ready to receive investment, I think it depends what kind of investment we're talking about. I think the great thing is that we've developed models around investing into tech companies, and I think that can become, I hope that can become a really great model for how we start to invest in other asset classes. I think especially, actually, I think the really cool thing is right now we'll have a transition of people that are actually very, and I think, was it you, Chi, who said that you're looking to diversify? Because I'm also actually very overexposed to tech and VC as well. So I'm also actively interested in how we can also start to build some of these other investment instruments. And someone like me can also, I'm ready to really, be part of, building up the continent. I really believe in driving that economic shift, but from us. We outpace, I think this is a really important point, right? Like, we as the diaspora outpace in our investment, FDI, foreign direct investment, we outpace aid into Africa. But I think we're not using our might and our force in a really productive way right now. So I don't know, I'm an optimist, and I believe there's an opportunity to tap into right now.
Thank you. Thank you all. Before I say goodbye to the three of you, any parting words for the audience? I'm sorry for folks who've asked questions. We don't have time for questions, but we'll have time for questions later after the demo. Any parting words from any of you?
I'll say.
Oh, sorry.
No, after you.
I was going to respond really quickly to what Gordon just mentioned around, like, I think observing that, younger Africans are ready, but older, I'm not trying to be rude, but you know what I mean? The other generations who perhaps been through investing on the continent have been burned. feel differently. But I hear that, I get that, and I think I've watched my own parents go through things like that. And I think I take that on board as something that I'll be sort of pushing people like Joe to do, in terms of making sure, right, that we can actually start to, because I think once we have models that work and once we prove this out, it makes it easier, right, for people who have previously not been particularly keen to invest in this kind of way to start doing so. And I think that speaks not just for the diaspora, but also local investors. We didn't speak about that, but we actually have a lot of work to do to activate local capital as well. So yeah, that was going to be my final point. I think Gordon's made a really great point, and I just think there's work to do.
Thank you, Rumbi. Over to you, Chi.
I guess I would just say start where you are. I think we all have a sphere of influence, irrespective of where we are and where we're positioned, and just kind of think about what that is and what you can do to expand that and add value. And I will say one thing too, as we talk about diversifying investments, one of the biggest wealth creators in the US is franchising, right? And business ownership. And I think that, and in fact, I know a founder in the US, African diaspora, that's building a platform around that. And I think that when you think about all the small and medium-sized businesses on the continent, many of which are family businesses or family-run, that some may want to keep it in the family, and that's fantastic, you know, and some may be looking to sell or expand. I think looking for those opportunities where we can either help existing businesses scale their operations if that is their goal, right, and retain ownership, or provide them with liquidity if they are looking to let go of it, right, through search funds. And I know a lot of folks that are looking into those models as well in the US, and I'm sure on the continent as well, right? But find folks that are interested in across globally, who's building, who has a similar view, who's building something similar, and if we're possible, if it makes sense, join forces, right? And I think that's how we're going to scale. I think if we just expand and formalize, I want us to go from more informal to formal where possible, because as I think you mentioned it, Joe, anything that's not measured or tracked, right, it can't be grown. And so I like the fact that platforms like Borderless exist and are growing. And I think that a lot of those mechanisms can be incorporated into a lot of informal sectors on the continent.
Thank you, Chi. Any final words, Ezra?
Well, not really. I think she already said it, which is like start where you are, get into investing, leverage platforms like Borderless to diversify across startups, real estate, and the like. And yeah, like basically there are opportunities out there, and I guess it's just also get familiar with the concepts of investing as well. It might seem intimidating at first, but very quickly, depending on your level of interest, like it becomes very easy to grasp and all that. And yeah, you'll be able to have interesting conversations around the subject. So yeah, get into it. I think that's it.
Thank you all so much. And I have to disclose to the audience that I did not pay any of them to say all these good things. But I'm super, super grateful for all three of you for giving me an hour. I know Chi has to go. So thank you all. Thank you all for supporting the Borderless journey. Thank you all for investing in the Borderless journey. I know a lot of people still don't know who my investors are, but it's definitely one or two of the three. So yeah, when you see me next time, ask me and I can tell you. Ezra, Chi, Rumbi, thank you all so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Thanks to our panel for that rich conversation. Now let's quickly run through some key updates on what's launching today and what's coming next. From new features to upcoming collective partnerships, and this is what you can expect in the Borderless ecosystem. And to do this, I'm going to pass it on to our Chief Marketing and Communication lead at Borderless, Tammy.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. Honestly, building Borderless has been a journey, and we're really excited to be here, finally going live. So we've been sharing on social media about Borderless and get experiences. Borderless is an all-in-one infrastructure for global community. We enable collective managers to start, build their collectives effectively. Whether you want to invest or you want to manage your collective, Borderless provides comprehensive investment and collective management tools for you. So some of our key features are multi-collective access, membership management tools, collective management tools, investment accreditation, multi-asset investments, and funds collection and disbursements in over 10 currencies. So rather than just tell you like we've been doing for the past couple of months, we want to show you, right, what to expect and how the Borderless platform works. So over to you again, Joe.
Hello, welcome to Borderless demo. My name is Joe Kinvi, and I will show you how the platform works. The demo will be in two parts. The first one would be for collective managers. So how do you set up your collective? How do you set up an opportunity? And the second part will be for a user. How do you join a collective? How do you pay for membership? And how do you action an opportunity? So I'm going to log in quickly with, I'm going to skip Google sign in and use an email address, and then I'll go through the steps very quickly. Okay, so once you sign in, you'll come to this page, and this is anybody who's joining the platform will have to fill in the details, and then we'll take you to the next stage. Okay, now I'll fill in all my details, and we will move on to the next stage. You have not created an account. And so when you come to the page, you'll see all the collectives that currently exist. But as a collective manager, you want to set up your own collective. So let's go and create one. We recommend adding a photo because it really, really helps with you finding, like, for people to discover you. We'll pick a picture here. Our collective will be called the Alter Collective 1. It's an investment collective. We're in the VC space. We operate in the UK. It's a private collective, so people have to apply to join. It's also a paid collective, meaning that we charge annual membership fee. We've configured it in a way that you can either charge monthly or charge annually. For the purpose of this, we're going to charge $500 a year, and we'll add our website here. Once you fill in all the details, if you submit, and what happens next is we receive the application. We'll get in touch with you as a collective manager, and we'll determine whether you're fit for Borderless. We are prioritizing collective managers that have done deals before, but in the future, anybody can set up, and we'll be able to approve you very quickly. Now, I've collectively set up. Let's go back to collective and find our collective. We call it the Alter Collective 1. Here we go. This is our collective. So for anybody to do your collective for the first time on Borderless, they have to go through an accreditation check in line with the UK laws, and then we will move on to the next stage. Right, so now you can view the collective, and as a collective manager, you'll be able to set up your page. You can add resources, you can add your description so that people can actually know what your collective is all about. And let me just do that real quickly to set up the full page. And now I've set up my collective page description, collective resources. So anybody who comes to this page get to at least know what this collective is all about. And as a collective manager, you get access to a shareable link where you can share your collective link with anyone, or you can put it on your website. So you copy this link, and this link will be available so that when anybody joins, when anybody wants to join your collective, they will click on this link and it'll take them directly to your collective. Let's keep all the other collectives that are out there come straight to your collective. Next, I want to show you how to set up an opportunity. To set up an opportunity, come to the opportunity tab, and then you will create a new opportunity here. I will set it up very quickly and then come back. So the opportunity name is Borderless Pre-Seed, obviously. The short description here, you add it right here. Pick your industry. You can multi-select depending on the industries that the entity covers, the year was established, the country, the city, and the website. There you go, continue. So we add in how much you're raising, the minimum, when the opportunity expires, pitch statements, and here as a manager, you can add as many resources as possible. And for the purpose of this demo, I added our pitch deck, and then you can go and click submit. And then once you submit, we, as the platform, will also receive the application, and we need to review it in line with regulatory rules in the UK. And we should be able to get back to you within 3 to 4 days if your application is complete. And once that's done, yeah, that's the end of creation opportunity. You can go back to the collective. Now, as a collective manager, we have set up your page. You can view the opportunity we just created, which is here. And yeah, that's the end of it. So I'm going to move on to the user part of the test. Okay, now I'm a user, and I came to Borderless, signed up, logged in, and saw all the collectives that are present here. We just created the Alter Collective 1, and I want to be able to join this collective. So click on this. And because I've used the platform before, we skip the accreditation, and now you can apply to join here. So the two main questions that you're answering here as a user is how much you tend to deploy every year and your application message. This really helps the collective manager to accept or approve the application. So you can send your application now. And once you send it, we take you to the payment page on Stripe. In the future versions, we'll also add other payment processors so regardless of where you are in the world, you'll be able to pay membership to any collective members out there. Okay, now we filled in all our payment details, and we will pay and subscribe. No, thank you. Voila, that's done. The collective manager receives a notice that somebody has joined the collective, and now let's go approve it. So we're back to the collective managers page where you can manage all your members. So you go here, you have an application. So Joe Kinvi has applied to join your collective. You can view his LinkedIn. You can view how much the estimated amount he can deploy a year is, and also the application message. In this case, let's go approve Joe. And now Joe is a member of this collective. As a collective manager, you'll be able to see more data about Joe in terms of when he joined, how many assets he's invested in, how much he's invested. But this is only gated to collective managers. Only if you're a user, you don't have access to other users' detail. You'll only be able to see that you both are part of a collective. The last step is I want to go and commit to an opportunity as a user, and we'll wrap up this demo very quickly. So now that I've been accepted into Alter Collective, I can now see the opportunities that are available to them, to me as a user. So here, that's the opportunity I just set up. And now I want to be able to go commit to this particular opportunity. So you click on the opportunity itself. We have the risk warnings in line with SEO rules. You'll be able to see the minimum, the target, and all the information that I just put in there as a collective manager. And you can proceed to invest. For the purpose of this demo, we remove the KYC flow. But if you're coming to a platform for the first time, you'll need to do KYC before you can make a commitment. And in this case, we're committing the basic amount, which is $1,000, and then go here and boom, you. Hello, welcome to Borderless demo. My name is Joe. And because I've used the platform before, we skipped that. Here you'll be able to see more data about the Alter Collective. I can now see the opportunities that are available to them, to me as a user. So here, that's the opportunity I just set up. And now I want to be able to go commit to this particular opportunity. So you click on the opportunity itself. We have the risk warnings in line with SEO rules. You'll be able to see the minimum, the target, and all the information that I just put in there as a collective manager. And you can proceed to invest. For the purpose of this demo, we remove the KYC flow. But if you're coming to a platform for the first time, you'll need to do KYC before you can make a commitment. And in this case, we're committing the basic amount, which is $1,000, and then go here and boom. You as the user or as an investor, you get a couple of options to send your wire. We have 3 so far, but again, we want to add others like Naira, Kenya shillings, ZAR, so that folks can send the money in the currencies that's easier to them. And in each case, we're localizing it. So if you're in Nigeria, you can do a bank transfer. If you're in Kenya, you'll be able to use M-Pesa to send your money. And so we give you all the information here where you can wire your funds. And then once you send the money, you can click I've sent the money, and the collective manager will receive a notice that, hey, this person has made a commitment and has sent the money. Or you can also send your money later. And what we've done is in the back end, we'll send notification to the investor every now and again until the money is sent. For the purpose of this, we're going to say send the payment later. And you as the investor, you will be able to see your commitments whenever you come to the platform. So you have your assets, you have the commitments, you have your opportunities, and here you can see the commitment we just made, which is $1,000. And you can click into it, and whenever you're ready, you can just go send your wire. And final piece, let's just go see what our commitment looks like with the collective manager. And as a collective manager, actually, you can also invest yourself as a collective manager because you're also an investor, you want to do stuff. So we've made it possible for collective managers to also invest. But also now we just made a commitment, and Here you can come and see that, hey, Tesla 1 had made a commitment of 1,000. The capital is pending when they made a commitment in reference. So we use this reference to do reconciliation. And when the funds are received, you'll see that capital is received, which is the status here. And then we'll use the reference to reconcile. So this is a very short demo. Sorry, it's under, I'm trying to squeeze it under 10 minutes, but it's just over 10 minutes. We're building a lot more. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. It's joe@onboardless.com, or we have a WhatsApp number as well that you can reach out to. And I want to thank you greatly for paying attention to this demo.
Oh yeah,
Awesome,
thank you all.
awesome.
I've quickly changed clothes. I'm back. Back to you, Nubi. I took Nubi's top, so.
Well, yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, you heard about the updates on Borderless. You've also seen the demo, and so yeah, it's live, it's working, and so we're excited about what happens next. So we're going to open over the next. I know we're running a little bit over time, but over the next like couple of minutes, we'll open it for just question and answers. So if you have any questions, like I mentioned, you can use the chat. Sorry, we're not taking any live questions today, just to help us manage things. If you have any questions, please just go to the, if you're on your phone, there's a three dots on your phone. You can click on that and submit your questions there. If you're on a laptop or on iPad, there's a grid where you can click as well and ask your questions. And if you have questions that are there already, people can actually like upvote or downvote those questions. Please help us better manage things. Thank you for your support on that. Okay, so let's see if we have any questions submitted yet, so we can start with those. Just opening up the question too. So yeah, there is a question there already. So there's an exciting narrative that Africa is high risk, corrupt reading, and you would lose everything, including your shirts. Just curious as to like how Borderless is actually again helping baking transparency and trust into its products to help manage that risk.
So essentially, we're making sure that like as you saw in the demo, we are checking multiple times. We're doing KYC. We are reviewing collectives that are onboarded. We're reviewing deals that are posted on the platform. And we do all this in line with UK law. Even beyond that, we're making sure that a capital doesn't necessarily touch the hands of the collective managers. In the cases that we've tested in beta for Diaspora House specifically, we made sure that the capital actually went to either a lawyer or the money went to a developer directly. So the money is actually not touching multiple hands. Even before we send any money on behalf of a collective, we make sure that we have the right receipt, the right documentation. In most cases, especially when it comes to real estate, we've actually gone in person to see these assets and make sure that they are legit. So collective members or collective organizers are not scamming each other. So it's not perfect yet, and we're testing a lot of things, but we want to make sure that capital is going where it's supposed to go to. What happens beyond that capital, we're not able to manage it, but at least we'll go to its intended destination. A lot of it has been manual. Over time, we'll see how we can automate it, especially at scale, because how do you manage 1,000 collectives manually? It'll be a pain. So we're hoping to leverage technology and also people on the ground to be able to support the Borderless journey. We've been somehow intentional about that as part of our hiring. For example, we have Gloria, who's in Nairobi. We have teams in Nairobi, we have teams in Kenya and Nigeria. And what we want to do is over time, as we hire, we're very intentional about making sure that we hire people who are in the regions where Borderless is helping folks invest, and that'll make our lives easier. I hope that was
all right. There's a follow-up question. Well, not follow-up question, that's a different question. So this is talking about, like, I think Hook members are seeing Borderless and like, whoa, when do we get to be part of this goodness? So perhaps the Hook members on the call, I think I've seen one or two people in the chat saying, when do we get access? When do we get access? Yeah.
I think having Hook is a blessing and also a curse. A blessing because we've managed to do so many investments. And that's also the curse, meaning that there's so many data to migrate. And over the past couple of weeks, we've actually spent a lot of time making sure that the data that we move to Borderless is accurate. That process hasn't finished yet. But yeah, we're hoping that no later than the end of June, Hoke will be available. And also we have a couple of deals open on Hoke. We want to make sure that those deals are closed and there is a very clean transition. And there's going to be a lot of change from platform that Hoke is using now to Borderless. For example, we're changing how we value assets or deals. We're changing quite a lot of stuff, and rest assured, Hoke will be migrated. It's just it's taking longer than we anticipated because, like, Hoke has done invested in 102 companies and like I think 120 investments. So it's in terms of data, it's a bit of a beast, and you're having to like come through every piece of data. That work has been ongoing thanks to Folakemi and Zainab at the Hoke team, and it'll be done no later than the end of the month.
All right. There's a question around, yeah, we'll be sharing the recordings afterwards on the deck. So yeah, no worries about that. And there's a question around what are the kind of like features should we expect from Borderless? Would you be able to help people plan or will be offering due diligence support, helping again collectives do this, drafting contracts, term sheets, cap tables, and things like that?
Yeah, well, that's a lot of things to build. Immediately, we want to focus on bringing collectives that are already doing stuff. So we actually help you migrate your data to Borderless, especially if you have this data sitting in Excel. So if you already have, even if it's just like one opportunity or one deal that you've done in the past, and this deal is not housed anywhere, please reach out to us. We'll be able to move it to Borderless for you. We've already received quite a lot of feature requests, and one of the most frequent ones is, can I do secondaries? We've seen at Hope there's been a lot of secondary trading, and throughout the entire ecosystem, secondaries provide liquidity. And what we want to do is we want to be able to build that feature as soon as we can. The other feature that has been requested is wallets. Wallets, because we're not just doing venture, we're dealing with other asset classes, and a lot of these asset classes generate revenue. In the case of real estate, is there a world where we can now deliver your returns in a wallet that you can use? Yes, that world will exist, and wallets are next. Those are the two very important features that we want to build, because it will help. Like beyond that, we want to introduce other asset classes, such as SMEs, and we want to do like diaspora bonds. We want to do film, and we will listen to you. We'll listen to you, our customers who want to use the platform, and we'll build for you. We don't want to. The reason why we're releasing the platform early is because we don't want to just go build things that you don't want. We want to make sure that we build things that you want, and we want you, our members, our collective managers, to tell us what to build, to tell us what you need, and we will listen, because if we listen to you, you pay us, and this platform stays alive for a very long time. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple of growing questions around just again, how does the vetting happen? I think as Precious is asking, Dilly is asking, where are people again? How do we how do you vet these collectives? How do you make sure the collective managers are doing with capital what the money has been like? So are you giving the money to them? Are you again just how are we actually again vetting collectives and make sure again money is going to the right places?
Yeah, so money doesn't go to collective managers. Money goes into a segregated account, meaning that when your members send money, it goes to a different account. And at the instruction of the collective manager, we will wire those funds, but we just don't wire the funds. We need to see the investment documents, the DD. We don't do DD, but we authenticate, at least we check that you've done the work. In terms of like vetting collective managers themselves, we want to prioritize folks that have done investments before. That's a very good way to assess that you can be a good collective manager. If you haven't invested before, it might take us a while to onboard you, and we'll have to do a lot more work. And that's like beyond doing KYC checks, reference checks, and speaking to a couple of your collective members to know that you are not, coming together to commit, to do whatever. So this platform will work and will stay around for a long time when we bring the right collective managers and the right opportunities. And we're not in a rush. We want to make sure that things are done and done properly. And over time, maybe we'll be less stringent. But like, again, if you're somebody who's never used this platform before, you don't have an account with us, you've never made an investment, it'll be very hard for us to onboard you. But if you've been part of Hook, for example, and you're going to go start your own collective, that's already data that we can leverage to be able to onboard you. I've had conversations with a lot of people on this call, and also some of you who invested in Borderless. You invested because you are looking for something like this that exists, and I'm hoping that I can build it for you so that you can kick off your own collective. So yeah, again, worth noting that the process will be manual in the early days, so please be patient with us in terms of bringing collectives online. We'll try to do it slowly so that we do it right, and hopefully we can automate that process of onboarding collectives soon.
Yeah, okay, maybe a clarifying question here for someone who's asking, oh, with Borderless, does that mean Hook is going away, Hook is dying slowly? Like, can you just perhaps clarify the correlation, the relation between like Hook, Borderless, and how does that fit together?
So, surprisingly, Hook, in 2025, Hook has performed marginally better than the past 3 years. And I don't know what that says about me no longer being in charge. So Hook is thriving more than ever. Hook was, the reason why we started building Borderless is because of Hook. Hook didn't have the tools. And we also know a lot of collectives out there that just don't have any tools. So Hook is like the reason why we started, but it's not the end of it. If anything, Hook is going to skyrocket from here on because now we have much, much better tools that can make the lives of Hook managers much easier. Folakemi runs the collective. Yeah, she, like in terms of revenue alone, Folakemi has done better than Nubi and I put together over the past couple of years. So yeah, Hook is not dying. If anything, Hook is only gonna get bigger because of Borderless. So yeah, no, Hook is here, and so Hook, Diaspora House, the collective that we're involved in, would be the very first one to come on the platform, and then we'll onboard other collectives one by one. But Hook is here to stay. If anything, it's only going to get bigger.
All right, we can take just one more question, but I know there are more questions that are, but I'm trying to like at least just lump them up together so that we're actually touching at least on as many as possible. I think one last question I will take is from Tayo Akemi. So it says, Borderless sounds like the OS for community savings and lending groups. So think Esusu, Chamas, and others. I said direct diaspora investment has been suboptimal, solve problems. Now you think about again trusts, which you've addressed as to how we're thinking about that. But then what about the other dimensions, like again due diligence, education, infrastructure, supply and demand of these opportunities for collectives? Like, so how are we thinking about that as well?
Yeah, supply and demand is a very tricky one that you have to manage it very nicely. Hence, like we're not gonna run with Borderless. First, we're gonna crawl and then walk and then run. DD, again, in the very early days, we will be supporting collective managers with DD, but also that's not scalable. The good news is we live in a world where AI is here. There's AI. I've spoken to a lot of builders who are building tools around like DD, and I'm really, really hoping to have some AI-powered tools that will make Borderless run smoothly. Again, we're infrastructure, meaning that we're building a ton of stuff together, but like we want to make collective managers' life easier, really and truly. And like one of the things that pushed us to start thinking about Borderless is we spent so many weekends doing paperwork. We spent so many weekends just making sure that Hook works. And if we weren't resilient and we just believed in the mission, Hook would have died a very peaceful death 3-4 years ago. One thing I really, really believe is more collectives will come online because Borderless is now making their lives easier. Borderless is helping them, find opportunities to co-invest in. Borderless is helping them find members that can join the collectives. And we've really, really thought about these products from the ground up. But again, like this is just our experience. We hope that, the people who come on the platform can help us make it better. I hope I answered the question. I know I've touched a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. And I've tried to answer more questions in the chat, so we'll leave it at that.
I
All right,
want to answer one question for Abby. The question is the prioritization of collective managers who have made deals before. Is that a regulatory requirement? No, it's not. It's just a very good filter for us. Like if we had to teach you how to manage a collective, the things that you need to do, maybe you're not ready for Borderless, but if you've done this before, then you know where to click when you come into the platform. So there's that huge education gap that we want to really we will fill, but it's not going to be immediate, but we will fill it. So the short answer is it's not a regulatory requirement.
All right. Again, just trying to race against time. We really want people to able to get back into their day. And again, I think we still see 123 of you are still on this call. So thank you so much for sticking with us. And so this is where we get to I think my favorite part. You know how they say it's one thing for you to sell your products, another thing for your customer or a user to actually again say what they do and again what your product actually enables. And so we have come to like our final segment for the evening, which is our collective spotlights. Now, I'll say Borderless is already powering real communities doing real work. So like I mentioned, there are people already building or coming together to go live on Borderless, including Hoke. And so tonight we'll highlight a few of them so you can see what co-investment looks like in practice and how you two can get involved. I think it was Ezra that said this is something you want to actually just lean into and see, can I understand this? Can I figure what's going on out here and actually then participate? And so we hope this section actually helps you get a little taster so that again, what are collectives? How do they operate? What do they do? And see how you can even get involved when they go live on Borderless. And so we'll start with the very first collective for the evening, Innovate.
Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to be here today. Very big congratulations to Joe. I was in London with Joe a few weeks ago, and I see the work that you put into this. Not to waste more time, I am Francis Omoroje. I'm originally Nigerian, but based out of Tanzania and Dar es Salaam. I am the managing partner and founder of Innovators Ventures, and also a partner at Serengeti Angels, which is a syndicate, which will be on the Borderless very soon. We are a venture factory supporting early stage companies to scale, and we also invest. Since we started, we've facilitated or invested in over 30 companies across Tanzania, Kenya, UK, and Nigeria as well. For today, I will talk about our diversification. We've been doing a lot of investment in startups, and now we are to ensure liquidity and also stronger return for investors who are kind of diversifying and adding more asset classes to our vehicles. We have going to have the SMB based bonds and also real estate asset classes. So for today, I'll be talking about the real estate, which is the first one is called Spora by Innovate, which will be sitting at the heart of Zanzibar. I'm very sure that all of you know Zanzibar is a top choice destination for vacation and all that. Zanzibar receives about 600,000 people annually in Zanzibar, and for this property, we're targeting just about 0.6% of that to hold that, which is about 3,300 guests per year. What we're trying to do here is to make coming to Zanzibar very affordable and have a luxury experience. If you want to, for people that have visited Zanzibar, if you want to kind of have a very nice experience from an accommodation point of view, you have to pay about $200 to $250 per night. And for this property, we are offering all inclusive from spa to gym and everything at a $90. The magic here is that we are going off grid. We're using technology to automate everything from check-in to check out all the experiences, so that can help us to reduce the operational cost and be able to give more convenience to our guests. Back to for investors that will be interested in the deal, we've kind of tokenized this. So the entry level for investment is about $1,000, but for a unit is about 27 per sales, 27,000 per unit. but we've tokenized that you can be able to get one token for $1,000. This first apart hotel is going to be 15-room, fully executed, and each of them is going for pre-sales $27,000. What we've done so far is we've actually have acquired the landed property in Zanzibar. We've had for Innovate itself committed to three of the units. We have other 2 investors that have got also 2 units. We are for this collective we're forming. We're actually putting up several units up. What makes it very interesting for investors to come in? We are looking at very strong return, also. All this will be powered by blockchain, and basically you get to earn. It's very uncapped earnings, so you earn per the revenue generated, and this will be distributed per month. So if you invest $1,000, we're looking at from our projections minimum of 30% annual return on investment. So if you invest $1,000, you get about $350 per year, and we have also got into a partnership with a bank to pre-finance the infrastructure. So commencement starts in September, and we are going to launch we're going to receive its first visitors in May 2026, and our investors start earning this same month we start. So that is the beauty about this. And another part before I hand over to Nubi is that we are also including a secondary market where you can also be able to liquidate the exits, maybe fully, partially when you want, and you can be able to see the appreciation of the property. So we are going to maybe hopefully go live on Borderless, and if you want to maybe learn more about it, you can maybe reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn, and we can chat more before we go live on Borderless. Thank you very much, Nubi.
Awesome. Thank you. So that's Innovate's our first collective spotlight for today. We'll move on to the next one. So moving from real estate to venture, we have the Ecosystem Commission.
Thank you, everyone, and congratulations to Borderless. Why am I doing this? Africans have missed out on all wealth creation movements: real estate, no land, farms, cities, mines, safaris, even Antarctica, which is a stone thrown away from my home countries. Industrialization, no planes, ships, manufacturing equipment, no patents, cannot even make toothpicks. Now, digital revolution, no Google, no Facebook, no WhatsApp. Are we going to keep on missing this? So we want everyone who has a digital device to be able to learn and participate in the digital economy. And we're going to do this through mitigating economic disadvantage and systemic economic oppression. So what is the rationale behind our group? There are 2 approaches here. The first one, this high barrier to entry. For an accelerator, you have to have 25K. A VC firm, you have to have 100K unless you negotiate. If you go alone for a startup, like what has happened to me also, sometimes you're not able to invest. If they go and do a syndicate, then you can put money instead of 1K or 4K. So that's the other part. So it has happened to me. Have I done this before? Yes. I've done this with Gangel since it was founded 2014. We've invested more than 3,000 companies. We've invested $1 billion. We have more than 5,000 members, and we started as 9 people. With just like about 5 members and 1 private equity firm, 1 family office. And so with this high barrier to entry, so you take 1 top VC, which is focused on Africa. If they have a deal that is for $1 million, instead of them feeling that with 900K, they can give us, with 1 million, they can give us 100K. Then our group feels that. If the deal is 300K, then we get 25K. If the deal is 40 million, we get 1 million. That means you'll be able to really invest in all stages of startups, from pre-seed all the way to pre-IPO. So there's no excuse of not being involved in any company. So I've seen strained relationships in Silicon Valley between LPs and VCs. And VC and PE, as much as they're great, they also have disadvantages. You go raise money for 2 to 5 years, you invest it, return it after 10 years, you repeat, rinse and repeat process. So one area we're looking at is to really put a community of VCs, founders, and LPs to work together in tandem, in agreement, to invest in companies that would be tech-enabled, and this could be traditional companies, SMEs, and we build them for long-term, decades. We build legacy. We're talking of something like Mars, the chocolate company that was started in 1911. We're talking of Warren Buffett's companies.
Thank you.
This is where we want to go. And, think of those companies that Wodemaya sometimes features on his YouTube. We can approach them. We can work with them. So what is our belief here? Our belief is really to have systemic, systems-oriented work to transform economic activity, create jobs in communities, cities, regions, countries, Africa, and global. We want African companies also to expand globally. So who are we? We are a bunch of different kinds of LPs you can think of: VCs, corporate venture capital, family offices, universities, individuals, high net worth people. We are talking to even one church. So they can use all those funds they get to make it to become something. We're talking of VC. We have a group now which is about 120 members, and most of them come from the African VC ecosystem. Some of them have gone through programs of the VC alumni, of which I've gone through 2 of them. And for me, it was more like for networking. And
we'll have to wrap up, Philip. Can you just actually be like just one line, just to finish up any last thing you want to say before we move on forward?
Okay. Our ultimate goal is to invest in anything: crypto, real estate, do financial management for individuals, families, nonprofits, and corporations. We want you guys to have more than 3 passports each, whether it's for you or for children, because that's how you really start to become really wealthy. And we want to have confidence in you guys to set up family offices and investment funds. Thank you.
Awesome.
And we don't want to have another Antarctica going away.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Yeah, one thing I know about top VCs have access, and it's always a tall order for smaller checks to find their way into these deals. And so here's one means of actually again joining a collective that gives you access to co-invest with top VCs into top deals in the world. And so that's again, they're looking forward to having the ecosystem commission on Borderless. And then on to more familiar territory. We'll pass it on to Folakemi from Hoke.
Hey, thank you, Nubi. Hi, everyone. I don't even feel like I need to really introduce, but hi, everyone again. My name is Folakemi Osho, and I am the collective manager here at Oak. For those of you that don't know who we are, we're a global community of creators and operators that are backing businesses building for Africa and for Africans in the diaspora. We started Oak as a community of just 2 people. It was started by, interestingly, Joe and Nubi. And, since then in 2020, we've grown to over 800 angel investors across the continent, and we've deployed $3.7 million into about 120 startups. Fun fact, Ezra had mentioned that he had deployed 3.6 million. So we're just a little bit over Ezra, and we're allowing people to deploy less than, you can deploy as low as $1,000 into the startup. So if you need to start your investment journey, you're looking to build wealth, I believe Oak is the place for you. Outside of community investment, we're also a community that we're across different countries, and we ensure that every of our members are represented there. So on our Slack, we have resources for you to learn from as an angel investor. We have people to speak to if you need, even if it's just in your everyday life. You have people that are also in that same sector as you that you can also speak to on Oak. So Oak is one step away from an investment community, but just a community that you can also leverage in everything you do in life. So in terms of minimum investment, you can invest as low as $1,000 into the startup, and our membership fee is $100, and we charge annual fee of $100 just for you to be able to see these deals, for you to be able to invest in them, as well as also receive your updates in the deals that you've invested in. Thank you very much. And if you want to learn more about us, you can just go to www.oak.co. You can find us on LinkedIn, on TikTok, YouTube, anywhere you are, we are actually there as well. So go on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, just search for O Club and you'll find us there. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for Akemi. Yeah, and well done. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Hoke go live. And like Joe said, really skyrockets how the growth story of Hoke on Borderless. We started out with just talking about the vision, what Diaspora House is to be. So what Borderless is to be, and again, what you should look out for. We had an amazing panel exploring the topic. Is the diaspora ready for investments? We also had the demo where you learned a little bit more about just how Borderless is coming together, and again the products itself. And we had a Q&A, and finally close out with a feature of a number of collectives that you will be finding on Borderless soon. And so we've come to the end of the evening. I'm just going to pass it on to Joe to give us the closing remarks, and we'll end for the day. Again, I see about more than 100 people are still on this call, so thank you. I know we are a little bit run past time, but thanks so much. We will just round off with this closing remarks from Joe Kinvi.
Thank you, Nubi Kayode. Yeah, obviously building this company product, every piece of it wasn't done by me. Very lucky to have Nubi Kayode, who I remember I was pacing in his living room. It was like back in 2022 when I told him this very, very wild idea, and we're finally here. It only took nearly 3 years, but here we are. So Nubi Kayode, I'm super grateful for you. Yawande, I don't know if Yawande is on the call, like OG, thank you. Yao, who built a big chunk of this product. Jean-Marie, I believe Jean-Marie and Tunji are also currently writing a ton of code while we're on this call, so I'm grateful for them. Joshua helped us, write a lot of code. Zainab, who's been my support from day one. Folakemi, Amanda, and Yemi, who are literally the third leg of this. They cater for compliance and legal. They make my life miserable, but for the right reasons. Belumi, who's no longer with us, but she worked with us for quite a while. Timmy, your chief marketing and growth lead. Gloria, who Gloria and Timmy joined this year, and they've been like, now I don't know what it would be like not to have them here. Timmy, I don't know if Timmy's on the call, but Timmy and Elijah helped us with design. And I missed one person who's Dora. Dora also helped us write a ton of code. I don't know if Dora isn't on this call. But that goes to say that there is a lot of people who participated in bringing this company to where it is. And this is without even talking about the investors. The investors have funded this journey. Every single one of them. I saw many of them on this call. And I'm excited to have many of them join, set up their own collectives. I hope Ezra comes to set up a collective one day so that we can all join and become unbelievably rich. Or liquid rather. And yeah, it's been a hell of a journey, but I just know that we're just getting started, and I'm excited to to do many more with you. Now you can go to the website if you're already part of a collective that we brought here, you'll receive a notice to come on. If you're not yet, you will discover these collectives. You have a wait list that you can join. The website itself is live, the application will be live, and if you're on a wait list, don't worry, you'll receive updates. And if the collective that you're looking for isn't there yet, it will come. So there'll be collectives going live regularly. And as a collective manager, if you're not on the wait list, please join it. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to spend time with you and help you think around just the formation of your collective. I've been doing this for 5 years, and I think I might know a thing or two about collectives. But yeah, it's live. And yeah, thank you also very much. We have one final slide.
All right, as we close out, we want to thank each of you for being here. So that is in the end, is the beginning of something bold and borderless. So join a collective or start one, invite someone if you're, again, part of one already, and be part of building the Africa that we all believe in. So from all of us, thank you, and we'll see you on the other side. Please do stay connected on LinkedIn, Instagram, X, YouTube. And if you actually scan this code, it takes you to the Borderless WhatsApp channel, where you will get daily and periodic updates as to how things are coming along. So thank you again for a wonderful evening, and have a good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you.